Hi there, group members. My case study. Okay, so imagine this. I have a first year principal who is told that she has to handle bus discipline, PBIS, bus drivers, all that stuff as her main priority. She has 7 buses on her fleet, but last year there were 8. So coming in, she already knew that routes were longer than normal, and parents had already been making her aware that they were disgruntled about the long routes. In addition to that, all the drivers on her fleet have been on her fleet for a very long time, some up to 20 years, and have been driving their routes for generations. Okay. With the 7 routes and with the change, 2 of the drivers decided to retire. So, yes, she's down to 7, and now she has 2 that don't have drivers, and she's utilizing every possible sub driver she can. In the meantime, she creates a PBIS bus discipline matrix with her PBIS committee at the school. It seems to be working pretty well for all buses except for one. She's being consistent. It's important that she's building relationships with the drivers and with the students to make sure that they can follow this. But the one bus just isn't working. As she investigates, she realizes that the driver, Mr. Lenny, on that bus, is a retired um, parole officer, or he works at a prison. He was a prison guard. Anyway, he has his approach to the students is very aggressive and yelling. If they get out of line, he's like, "Hey, y'all, stop this," kind of thing. Then on that bus, you also have some very outspoken students who are used to fighting for what they want. This school is middle class. It's a middle school ranging 6th through 8th grade, middle class school, but the students on this route are really impoverished and are used to fighting for what they want. At any rate, one particular young lady, Samantha Land, enjoys getting the driver's goat, but she also has no respect for him whatsoever, and he for her. He expects that she be this polite, quiet, only speaks when told to kind of girl. Um, and she expects him to be the driver that just drives the bus and doesn't care what she does in the back. At any rate, her problems and the behaviors that she does are not necessarily enough to warrant a discipline referral, but when they do, he's quick to act on hers and not always on anybody else's. One incident in particular occurred. Her story and his story don't match, but her story is that he stopped the bus, got out of his seat, came and yelled at her, spit in her face, told her she was trash, and that she should have to get off the bus. And then his story is that she was throwing things and wouldn't stop. So he had to pull the bus over, got out of his seat, went to the back, and said, "If you don't stop, I'm going to have to call somebody to get you off the bus." Well, so the part where their stories are the same is that after that, the bus goes on, gets to her stop, and there's no issues between that and the stop. But when the stop comes, he claims that she refused to get off the bus, saying she was calling her mom, who is known for having charges for bullying on her, to come over and address him. And he continues to tell her, "You're going to have to exit the bus. You're going to have to exit the bus." Her story is that she was locked on the bus, that he refused to open the door and continued to berate her in front of her peers. So ultimately, the assistant principal is thinking, well, I can just watch video. Well, come to find out, the video cameras were not on the bus because the bus had been exchanged for a older bus while they did maintenance. So her normal route of watching video to try to figure out which route to go is out. You have some students that are agreeing with Mr. Lenny, some students that are agreeing with Samantha, but nevertheless, you have Samantha's mom who's saying, if you don't do something about this, I'm going to the newspapers and I am going to your district office. This has been an issue for 3 years. In addition, the assistant principal can't move the driver because on the fleet there are several buses that only certain drivers are approved to drive, and he isn't one of them. In addition to that, there are no drivers willing to drive that bus because they're familiar with the issues that he has. and she can't upset the driver enough that he possibly quits because they're already down two drivers. So what does she do? Research says that she should do some more training on PBIS for both students and parents and other community stakeholders. It also says that she should do some more training with the drivers about the relationships that they build with students and the importance for how that sets the tone for the students' success within the classroom. So I'm interested to hear what you think about the outcome of this and what suggestions you have for this assistant principal. Thanks.